and the omnibus. So I was forced into the Archers when I was a child. And look, it's come back to bite me later on. I'm awash with this stuff.
The Archers is the world's longest-running radio show, with more than 15,000 episodes broadcast. Despite being a rural flavor show, The Archers is recorded in the heart of...
Welcome to the debate. Sometimes a life changes by inches. You know, a slow accumulation of days and weather and routine. And then sometimes it changes with the violent suddenness of a freight train. In the material we're analyzing today, that train arrives in two very distinct forms: a landlord's email offering a massive payout and a 19-year-old's positive pregnancy test.
And it really is the collision of the romantic impulse and, well, economic reality. We're looking at two parallel tracks today. You have Esme, who is fighting to keep a farm that is, for all intents and purposes, bleeding her dry. And then George and Amber, who've decided to bring a baby into a situation just defined by unemployment and trauma.
So the central question we're debating is simple, but it's one that tears people apart. When the smart money says run, is there ever a truly valid reason to stay? I'm arguing for the defense of the leap of faith. I believe Esme's attachment to her land and George's sudden embrace of fatherhood, they represent a form of value, an existential value, that the smart money just can't calculate. These aren't errors in judgment, they are assertions of humanity.
And I am taking the side of the reality check. What you call a leap of faith, I call reckless endangerment. We are witnessing characters making decisions based on, frankly, dopamine spikes and adrenaline while completely ignoring the structural realities of their bank accounts and their own psychological capacity. I'll be arguing that Emma, who is, positioned as the villain here because she calls the young couple idiots, is actually the only person in the room operating with any intellectual honesty.
Okay, so let's begin with Esme. To understand her decision, we have to understand the week she's just had. She gets a clear TB test for her herd. Now, for anyone who doesn't know, bovine tuberculosis it's the grim reaper of British farming. A positive test means slaughter, lockdown, financial ruin. So getting a clear test isn't just good news, it's a reprieve from execution.
It is a dopamine spike. And that is dangerous. Esme herself says she's high on it. This is classic intermittent reinforcement. The farm punishes her for months. Exhaustion, bills, mud, isolation, and then it gives her this one moment of relief. Psychologically, that kind of intermittent reward is far more addictive than a steady paycheck. It blinds her to the fact that the business model is failing. She's celebrating survival as if it were success.
Well, failing is a judgment call based purely on profit. She is sustaining it. But you're right. In this moment of euphoria, the landlord drops the bomb, a surrender of tenancy. He offers a life-changing amount of money to just leave. The logic is brutal. Take the cash, secure your future, walk away. But Esme tells David she can't bring herself to say yes. She isn't doing math here, she's doing soul-searching. She feels the spiritual tether to her late father through that very soil. She even says the work makes her feel closer to him than when he was alive.
And that sentimentality is the most expensive luxury item on the market today. Let's look at the alternative. She is facing a tribunal to keep the land. And for our listeners, agricultural tenancy tribunals are their high-stakes poker. If she loses the land and she gets zero compensation. The landlord is offering her a golden parachute to avoid that risk. David, a fellow farmer who loves the land, who gets that spiritual connection, he looks at the offer and calls it a no-brainer. When the person who shares your romantic vocation tells you to take the cash, you should probably listen.
But David also says he would be devastated if she left. You're ignoring the concept of identity capital. Esme isn't just a unit of labor, she's a custodian of a legacy. If she takes the money, she becomes a woman with a full bank account and an empty soul. She explicitly asks, how does that feel? And the answer is devastated. You can't build a happy future on a foundation of internal devastation, no matter how much interest that money earns.
You can build a very comfortable future on it, though. And comfort allows you to heal. Esme admits she is completely knackered. She's awake at night worrying about straw shortages, about badgers. She is burning the candle at both ends. And her solution? She proposes taking on a 4-week sprint contract in web design to subsidize the farm labor. This is the modern trap, working a high-stress tech job to pay for the privilege of working another high-stress manual labor job. It's a recipe for burnout, not sustainability.
I see it as a recipe for autonomy. The sprint contract pays brilliantly. She's hacking the system. She's using the digital economy to preserve the agrarian way of life. That's not delusion, that is adaptation. She's finding a third way between just going bankrupt and completely selling out. Most people hate their jobs. She is using the job she can tolerate to save the life she actually loves.
It's a house of cards. One illness, one bad crop, one lost contract, and the whole thing collapses. She is gambling with her sanity. But look, if you think Esme's financial gamble is risky, it pales in comparison to the human gamble being taken by George and Amber. Esme is risking her own assets. George and Amber are risking a human life.
Okay, let's pivot to the pregnancy. George and Amber announce they're expecting. They are, in their own words, chuffed to bits. Will, the grandfather, he sees this as a moment of profound hope. He compares it to the new life of lambing season. It's a biological imperative, really, to find joy in creation.
It is a biological imperative to protect your offspring, which is precisely why Emma's reaction is the correct one. Let's look at the balance sheet here. George has recently been released from prison. He's a history of traumatic brain injury. He is unemployed. Amber is 19 years old. They've been a couple for a matter of months. When they announce this, Emma doesn't smile. She calls them idiots. That is not cruelty, that is a risk assessment.
It is verbal abuse disguised as realism. To call your son and his pregnant partner idiots in the moment of their greatest vulnerability is frankly disgusting, and that's a word the text actually uses to describe her behavior. It strips them of their agency. Amber explicitly states, "We're adults and we make our own decisions." They admitted they changed their minds and stopped using protection. This wasn't an accident, it was a choice.
A choice requires the cognitive capacity to understand the consequences. Does George demonstrate that? He's still deflecting blame for his past actions. When Emma pushes him, he retreats into accusations of toxic behavior regarding his Uncle Clive. He weaponizes his family's trauma to shield himself from the reality of his own bank balance. That suggests he is nowhere near mature enough to raise a child. He's using therapy speak to avoid accountability.
Or it suggests he is acutely aware of the generational cycles he is trying to break. He is setting boundaries, however clumsily he's doing it. And look at it from Will's perspective. Will argues that the baby might calm George down. We see this frequently in sociology. Responsibility acts as a stabilizing anchor. A young man with nothing to lose is dangerous. A young man with a child has a reason to wake up, to get a job, to stay out of trouble.
Introducing the Archer's mug, where elegance meets everyday comfort. Crafted from premium white ceramic, designed with vibrant peekaboo colors inside, simple, modern, and stylish. Start your day the Archer's way, with warmth, familiarity, and the comfort of voices you've come to love. As the stories unfold on the Archers, let this mug become part of your daily ritual, a small reminder of life in Ambridge. Practical for every home, dishwasher and microwave safe. Available in 2 sizes, 11 ounces and 15 ounces, designed to fit your lifestyle. Enjoy your favorite drink in a mug that connects you to Britain's most beloved countryside story, The Archers. For more information and to order your very own The Archers mug, follow the link below and make it part of your daily routine.
This baby could be the making of him.
Unfair to the child. A baby is not a therapy animal. A baby is a sleep deprivation machine that costs a lot of money. And this brings us to the core conflict, the burden on the village. So Will offers to house them. He paints this picture of a happy, multi-generational home where Poppy George's sister helps out and everyone chips in.
Which is the traditional model of human survival. The nuclear family, mom, dad, kids in a locked box, that is a modern invention. The village, Will, Poppy, Amber, George raising the child together is a beautiful, resilient structure Will is stepping up. He says, I can help them a bit. He is choosing connection over judgment. He understands that isolation is the enemy here.
Will is choosing fantasy over logistics. Emma cuts that fantasy to ribbons with one sentence. Poppy will love the baby for 5 minutes, and then who changes the diaper at 3 a.m.? Who deals with the crying? Emma predicts accurately, based on all past data, that she'll be the one picking up the pieces.
Is she predicting it, though, or is she manifesting it? Her negativity creates a self-fulfilling prophecy where she positions herself as the martyr before the baby is even born.
She's analyzing a pattern. Emma is part of the sandwich generation, squeezed between caring for aging parents and adult children who won't launch. She explicitly says, I've got things I want to do. She wants to reclaim her life. And now because George followed a sign, some nebulous feeling, she is being conscripted into grandmotherhood and free childcare. She notes that her other daughter, Kira, already gets zero attention because George sucks all the oxygen out of the room. This isn't just about money. It's about Emma's finite emotional resources. She is drowning, and they just handed her a brick.
I think you're misreading Will's role. Will isn't blind to the chaos. He admits this isn't what a baby is for, but he is practicing radical acceptance. The pregnancy is a fact. Being angry about it doesn't unconceive the child. Will says, we need to try and look on the bright side. That isn't denial, that is strategy. If you alienate the parents, you lose your influence. If you support them, you can guide them. Will is playing the long game. Emma is just playing the blame game.
Will is enabling the delusion that love conquers structural unemployment. But let's tie these two threads together. We have Esme rejecting the specific, guaranteed resource of the buyout to chase a feeling. We have George rejecting the reality of his poverty to chase a feeling. Both are driven by this nebulous concept of hope.
It's not nebulous, it's essential. Look at the juxtaposition in the text between lambing and tree surgery. David and Esme have to go do a tree surgery job to make quick cash. It's effective, it pays well, and they absolutely hate it. David hates missing the lambing. Why? Because lambing is joyful. It's the core of why they exist. If you strip away the joy, the lambing, the baby, the connection to the land, and you leave only the safe, paying jobs, you have survival, but you don't have a life. You have a balance sheet, but you don't have a heartbeat.
You know what else you don't have? A tribunal hearing where you lose your home. The text leaves us with this profound sense of anxiety. David says, another day, another panic. That is the baseline existence for these characters. They are addicted to the chaos. They don't trust stability. When stability is offered, either via the buyout or via waiting to have kids, they reject it because they only know how to function in crisis mode.
I disagree. They reject it because the stability demands a price they aren't willing to pay. And that price is their identity. Esme would rather face the panic of a farm than the emptiness of that bank account. George would rather face the struggle of fatherhood than the stagnation of his post-prison life.
And that brings us to the future. Emma says, I'm looking into the future and I'm seeing the reality. She sees disaster, more of the same. And historically, she is right. The odds of George suddenly becoming a model provider because of a sign are statistically, well, zero. The odds of Esme winning a tribunal against a landlord who clearly wants her out are slim. The head says these are bad bets. Investing in George and investing in Esme's farm are both junk bonds. High risk, likely to fault.
But the heart says they are the only bets worth placing. Will suggest George might surprise everyone. That is the X factor. Human beings are not algorithms. We grow into the spaces we create for ourselves. If we all waited until we were perfectly financially secure and emotionally healed to live our lives, the human race would have ended a long time ago. We are a species that thrives on the edge of not quite ready.
That's a lovely sentiment for a greeting card, but it's terrible advice for a loan application. The reality is that Emma will likely end up raising that child, and Esme will likely end up broke. The tragedy here is that there were off-ramps, clear, safe off-ramps, and they drove right past them. They saw the exit sign, and they accelerated.
Or perhaps they drove toward the only destination that mattered to them. The text leaves us in suspension. We don't know the outcome of the tribunal. We don't know if George will step up, but we know they have made their choice. They have chosen the difficult, messy, meaningful path over the sterile, safe one.
They've chosen the cliff edge. We'll just have to see if they learn to fly or if they hit the rocks.
A grim prediction, But that is the tension of the source material. It forces us to ask, would you take the check? Would you embrace the chaos? Or would you listen to the Emma in your head screaming at you to stop?
I'd take the check every single time.
And I'd keep the farm. That's the debate. See you next time.
So what are you doing now?
Just getting ready for the next episode. Just moving mics around.
So what do you do?
I do the spot effects on the arches. Any
Are you what we
movements
call Foley then?
kind of. Yep.
Okay. And these are all part of the paraphernalia of production.
Yep. That's the ball bar. That's
This one.
Yep. That's.
Haley so wanted to be in their own place when their baby came. It's due in 2 months. Not much chance of that now. No. I mean, it would have been a stretch for them financially, mind, but I just wish there was something practical I could do to help them, Caroline.
I think The Archers has had this immense popularity over the years, basically because it has always very accurately reflected the reality of life and living in a rural community at whatever